Thank you, Dr. Rai. Eminent dignitaries on the dais, my fellow speakers, delegates, students, ladies and gentlemen, very good afternoon to you. I just take it from the place where Dr. Rai would have just left it. Not getting into too much of detail in terms of what the industry or how the software industry has or the IT industry in India has contributed to the Indian economy. I think those are something which all of you would know about. More than $100 billion of exports, including the domestic IT industry, it's more than $140 billion. Now, it would be important for us to understand, and for all of you to really understand, the evolution of how did this IT industry evolve over the past close to 40 decades. And if we see the evolution, the way it has been, it can be divided into 4 phases. The phase 1, which is the pre-1980s. Now, there was no software industry up till 1960s. And most of the software which used to come, it used to come as an integrated part of the hardware, which was bought over. The government in India protected the hardware industry by very strong, stringent taxation or tariff barriers. But later during that period, just before the 1980s, the demand for software development started growing up in the West. And very rightly so, the government did identify that there's a huge potential where we could really capture that. And at that point in time, India was also going through a tough time in terms of the foreign reserve. And that's when in 1972, the first software export scheme was identified. And more than me, there are stalwarts here on the dais who would really throw more light on how that happened. And this had the provision of importing hardware and setting it off in exchange of software which would get exported. And in 1974, the first software got exported out of India. Then came the subsequent decade of 1980 to the 1990. This is a very important decade where during this time a lot of the new computer policy got formulated in 84, which primarily addressed the 2 major challenges which the industry was facing till then. One was in terms of the infrastructure, how the infrastructure needs to be developed, and the second one, how to still further bring down the cost of the importing hardware. Subsequently, 86, the software policy was further liberalized, and soon after, in the 90s, the STPI, the Software Technology Parks of India, was formed to boost the software exports. Why I went through this entire the evolution, primarily because during this time, especially during this decade, a lot of companies, the Indian companies who were into that, were part of that industry, were making deliberate attempts to develop software products like compilers, operating systems. And I remember as part of Wipro, we used to have our own Wipro DOS, the Wipro Disk Operating System, which we used to call WDOS. So it's not that we are starting afresh, it's all there. It's the purpose I wanted to take you through this journey is to say that it is all which has been built over time, that the knowledge, and as Dr. Rai said, that both in terms of capability and capacity, I think it's all there. It's just the mindset transformation which we'll have to do and orient ourselves to look at it more from a product standpoint rather than from the way we have been delivering services. Then subsequently, these next 10 years saw further trade liberalization, the opening up of up to the foreign investment. A lot of MNCs which started coming into India, which what happened as a result of that was that there were a lot of competition. And what finally happened because of the competition was that in order to stay ahead, companies started investing significantly in research and development. So if you really look at the steps, and as Steve Jobs would have said, and you would have all heard him say, that you cannot connect the dots looking forward, you can always look backward, connect the dots. And when you look back and connect the dots, you will see that how it really helped in terms of coming out with an industry like this. Subsequently, the post-2000, I think all of you would have been closely monitoring. As an industry, the industry moved up the value chain from mundane, low-end work to more advanced work. more transformational work which used to impact the way the customers would do their businesses. Having said that, sometimes we all may be forced to think that while we had the capability, why didn't we really develop products for ourselves as a nation? Why did not companies really develop products? And it's my understanding, and what I believe is that probably, as the demand for software outsourcing globally grew and the demand grew, most companies wanted to really get a pie of that and purposely remain product agnostic so that they are able to cater to a larger clientele base and grow their businesses. And so that could be one of the reasons. The software product industry, as we always, an enabling industry, and it is very closely integrated or coupled with innovation, continuous innovation. And if we have to really look back and look at many of the solutions which have been developed in India, these are products, successful products, whether it is iFlex, Finacle, or Tally. These are all software products. If you look at Aadhaar, if you look at the election, the entire election system, the way it works, and I'll stop here and probably again for just a minute go back and give you the example of the Far West and primarily the United States of America. If you look at many of the solutions which are built by the private companies for the government out there, whether it is for citizen services or for defense, it starts there, and then subsequently they actively sell those in the global market. And that to the extent that government goes all out to lobby for those countries, for those companies in their country, in the other country or other partner nations or friendly nations to say that please use those software. It may be so that they do not use the exact version, but there are several. We have seen that in defense in several giants like Boeing and Lockheed Martin doing that. The question is, do we do that? Are we able to really market those products? We have enough products. Are we? So that's why I said that there needs to be a change in the mindset. There needs to be an orientation of product-driven mindset, which from a services-driven, which all of us need to do. With this, I'll stop here. We'll allow other speakers to talk, and then we'll have question and answer. Thank you very much.
Question. What's the cost per job in the IT sector for every job that's generated? What's the cost on investment in that job? For example, like, the government have policies for investing, say, 5,000 crores or 25,000 crores. I'm just coming back from investment summit this morning, and the government of Goa is planning around 25,000 crores of investment into Goa, which would possibly generate 50,000 jobs. So that's a huge cost per job. But in the IT sector, I would just like to know what's the cost per every job that's generated, on an average.
I don't think there would be any clear-cut. But I think we should stop relying on the government. Okay? I mean, the government has just one role to play, which is of generally creating the overall direction. If you look at the IT sector, a lot of these jobs actually came in the early days. There was no computer sciences. The computer industry actually was built upon the strength of people who were not computer literate, right? They went through, the private industry came up, the NIITs of the world came up, which actually trained people. So there was a completely parallel system which prepared people into that particular area, and those are the people who created the foundation of this entire system. So everywhere we should stop looking at the government will give the money and therefore this will happen. I think there is enough private investment that is now going in education, and that should help job creation.
Just as a thumb rule, and Ajay may like to, if you look at the total cost, the manpower cost comes to around close to a third of the total cost. So between 30 to 33% of the total cost which the industry spends, that would be the manpower cost. It could be a little more depending upon the profile of the company and what stage they are working at. Like if you were looking at a BPO, it would be possibly about 20-22%. There the conveyance cost is even higher. It's almost another 20%. So it's a thumb rule.
मैं एक बात बोलना चाहूँगा दिनेश सिंह जी से कि जो उन्होंने कटी पतंग की बात कही वो वास्तव में बहुत ही अच्छी बात है, मगर आज हम अपने एजुकेशन सिस्टम को देखें, 5 साल 6 साल के भी बच्चे की क्लास में देखें तो बच्चे बड़े शांति से बैठे रहते हैं और टीचर को सुनते रहते हैं। क्या 5 साल का 6 साल का बच्चा अपने घर में इतनी शांति से बैठता है क्या? हमारे एजुकेशन सिस्टम में उसकी क्रिएटिविटी को उस 5 साल 6 साल से ही खत्म कर दिया जाता है कि अगर स्कूल में आओगे तो अपने आप से कुछ नहीं करोगे, जो टीचर बताएगा वही करोगे। और इसी से तरीके से हमारा एजुकेशन सिस्टम चलता रहता है। जो किताबों में लिखा होता है और जो बाहर होता है उससे कोई कनेक्ट नहीं होता है। किताबों का क्या ज्ञान कहीं और से आया तो हमारी जिंदगी से ही है। तो हमारे टीचर उस ज्ञान को वहां से क्यों नहीं कनेक्ट कर पाते? अगर ये सिस्टम शुरू होगा, इस तरीके की पढ़ाई शुरू होगी, इस तरह का एक एजुकेशन सिस्टम होगा, तो किसी भी इंक्यूबेटर सेल की, इनोवेटिव सेल की जरूरत ही नहीं पड़ेगी। बच्चा इनोवेशन शुरू से ही सीख जाएगा।
आपने सवाल नहीं किया, आपका वक्तव्य था, मुझे बहुत भाया, अच्छा लगा। आई एम ग्लैड यू सेड इट। मैं उसका जवाब भी नहीं देना चाहता, परंतु एक और मैं टिप्पणी करता हूँ। यू आर एब्सोल्युटली राइट। भारत की परंपरा ये नहीं थी। बच्चे का नैसर्गिक विकास होता था 12 वर्ष की आयु तक, तमाम अपने माहौल के अंदर। 12 वर्ष में गुरुकुल जाता था, संस्थाओं में जाता था। उसके बाद तब तक उसका दिमाग अच्छी तरह से विकसित हो जाता था प्रश्न पूछने के लिए। भारत की परंपरा आप देख लीजिए, पुरानी जितने भी उपनिषद है सब प्रश्नों के आधार पर है। वहां पर पूछ रहा है एक शिष्य प्रश्न और उसी के आधार पर आगे बढ़ते हैं। अमेरिका में कुछ दिन पहले एक स्टडी हुई। 3 साल के बच्चों को देखा गया, उनका अध्ययन किया गया, उनकी क्रिएटिविटी को नापा गया। 4 वर्ष पे, फिर 5 वर्ष, 6 वर्ष, 4 और 5 के बीच में वो स्कूल जाना शुरू करते हैं। वो ग्राफ क्रिएटिविटी का नीचे गिरने लगता है। 7-8 वर्ष तक तो एकदम धरातल पर उतर आता है। ये बांध देते हैं, ये हानिकारक है, नॉट टू बी डन। और किसको सुनाए, कहाँ शुरू करें, धीरे धीरे समझ में आएगा। इस तरह की चर्चा से भी प्रभाव होता है, परिवर्तन आता है।
हेलो,
I'm going to spend next 10 minutes. We have presentation. Okay. So we are talking about electronic system design and manufacturing, ESDM industry. The topic I'm going to touch base on one hand we are talking about manufacturing in India, but how engineered in India or product innovated and IP created out of India is equally important in electronic space. That is something I'm going to touch base over next 5 to 10 minutes. Electronics industry, looking at the consumption of smartphones, laptops, mobile phones, everything, the industry which is today at around $60 to $65 billion is going to be $400 billion over next 10 years. Unfortunately, 65% of electronic products today we are importing in India. And whatever 35% is getting manufactured, most of it is low value added manufacturing. What do you mean by low value added? We are getting entire kits imported from abroad and we are just doing the assembly work here. So that type of manufacturing gives us hardly 10 to 12% of value recognition. So if it is a $100 mobile phone manufactured by doing assembly work in India, India just gets $12 recognition out of that $100 phone. So that 35% manufacturing what is happening today, most of it is low value added manufacturing. So the challenge is when the market will be $400 billion in next 10 years, if we continue to import at 65% rate, our electronic import will be more than oil import bill, which is definitely a very, very serious challenge in front of all of us. Now let's understand the value chain of any electronic product. If you analyze any electronic product, be it this laptop or smartphone or mobile phone, almost 50 to 60% of the value of any product is into IP and technology, that is into R&D. 30 to 35% value of any product is into components, where you have semiconductors, you have batteries, you have LCD displays, you have passive components, PCBs, and balance 10 to 12% of the value is into actual assembly, testing and packaging. Now, definitely there is a big thrust, Make in India. We are having fantastic policies launched by Government of India in last 2 to 3 years to support manufacturing in India. I will touch base on 2 important policies. One is Modified Special Incentive Package, MSIP, where a manufacturer who is investing into capital equipments for manufacturing, he will get 25% incentive of his capex investment from Government of India. Another important policy by Government of India is about clusters, where if an organization or a state is going to set up a world-class manufacturing facility, government is going to support 50 crore rupees for a greenfield or a brownfield cluster. So these two important programs are launched recently by Government of India to support manufacturing. Another important reason why electronic sector is important is from the security point of view. Look at telecom networks. Today all of us are connected through internet. If the telecom networks are supplied by international companies, I don't want to name the country here, but if we get from those networking and telecom equipments from a country which is not friendly with India, we are carrying a risk, or our entire power generation equipment or DWDM equipments which control our entire power grid, it has to be indigenized. Our defense and aerospace electronic, it has to be indigenized. We have to have a self-reliance on these security sensitive applications. We cannot afford to import those equipments. That is also another important aspect. And finally, we have to create jobs for our youth, and this is the sector which has a potential to create 2 million jobs. 20 lakh jobs over the next 5 years can be created into electronics system design and manufacturing. So now let me touch base primarily on what should be our focus, what should be our priority. At IESA we have done one report about the top 25 products consumed in India, and those products contributes to 83% of the total electronic consumption in India. So a simple thumb of rule is just focus on these 25 products, ensure that we localize them, ensure that we create a complete manufacturing ecosystem for these 25 products, and we are going to address 80% of the issue. So let's first go through the value chain. I'll go back, this presentation was not up, so I'll go back again to value chain now. As I was mentioning, 50% or 60% of the value is into IP and technology. So when we are talking about recognizing local value of electronics, we definitely have to focus on creating local product innovation and local IP recognition. And that's a big challenge. Today, if you ask me, talent is not an issue. Look at most of the global leading semiconductor companies. Out of top 25 companies, 22 companies have their large VLSI design centers out of India. That means we are developing the cutting edge next generation silicon out of India for global companies. What we get is services revenues. Means even our design services companies like Wipro, HCL, Infosys, TCS, everything, whatever we do, we are definitely creating large job opportunities, but IP is not getting registered out of India. So talent availability is not an issue. We can really develop world-class products. Look at even the leading electronics companies, Bosch, Visteon, Delphi in automotive space, in telecom space, Cisco or Juniper or Huawei or even Ericsson, Alcatel-Lucent, Nokia, all of them have large design centers of India. Industrial electronics, Honeywell, GE, ABB, everyone has a large design center out of India. So talent is not an issue in our country. We are doing global products from India. The challenge is how we can create local entrepreneurs, how we can create local industry where the innovation happens in India, for India, and patents are registered out of India, IP is registered out of India. And the simple solution, or this is my last slide actually, what we should be doing, we have those senior people who are working in these multinationals today, why they are not becoming entrepreneurs, why they are not starting, or why they are not coming out with their own product ideas. They have tremendous ideas with them. The challenge is they don't have the risk-taking ability to invest, because chip design investment, VLSI company starting, the EDA tools are very expensive. They have a challenge of capital investment. They have a challenge of, they don't have that risk appetite. So if we can facilitate an incubation center or a common facility center where these people can use a common infrastructure and convert their ideas, convert their abilities into a reality, then that is definitely going to help a local IP creation or local product innovation. So we have to focus on creating incubation center or common facility center to promote entrepreneurship, to help our engineers to innovate, to create something new. And that infrastructure which is expensive today, if we can create that infrastructure, that will be one of the first step. And I'm really happy Dr. Rai at STPI along with Delhi University and Cyber Media, ISA has worked over last year, and the first proposal of incubation center has been approved by Government of India recently. So that is going to happen, and I want to see that ISA really drive this agenda to create more and more incubation centers so that we can create entrepreneurship. The second simple solution is those 25 products which contributes to 80% of the consumption. If we have a local IP, if we have a local technology or local company who is into that product segment, with our government policies and with our preferential market access program where government is going to restrict government buying only from the companies which are showing local value addition. So with all these policies, if we can support those local companies to grow and grow their market share within India as well as export, that is something we should do. But where we are 100% dependent on imports today, I think we should, our biggest strength is our local demand, our local market consumption. So if we go to those leading companies globally and give them red carpet treatment and ask them to invest and ask them not to only do the kit assembly here, but create complete component ecosystem, create complete end-to-end manufacturing ecosystem in India, that will definitely help. So these are 2 or 3 things, that incubation center to create entrepreneurs, attracting global companies to invest in India and create a manufacturing ecosystem. These are definitely going to help, because $400 billion is a big potential market and we should not miss on this huge opportunity. And we have to definitely create local IP and technology. That's my last point. Thank you.
मैं अरविंद सरन आप सभी को विज्ञान परिषद की ओर से, विज्ञान भारती की ओर से एक स्मृति चिन्ह देना चाहता हूँ।
NIIT India and Association of Indian Magazines. He is the recipient of Distinguished Alumni Award of IIT Delhi and the Helen Keller Award for working in the disability sector.
You know, Mr. Vidya Shankar talked about the fact that we have no choice. And I completely 100% agree with him that there is absolutely no choice. We have to move from services, which currently is almost 60% of India's economy. And only about 20% is products. We have to move into that area. We have to move into that area because yes, there is an entire shift which is taking place in terms of, as he said, integration of products, integration of software and hardware. Today, when you buy a cell phone, there's immense amount of software also which is integrated there. And until and unless you can put the entire thing together in the Internet of Things and Internet of Everything, you will not really be able to succeed. And Sanjeev talked about local IP, and I think that is again something which is very, very important, very essential for us to create local IP, because ultimately growth of any nation takes place on the strength of its entrepreneurs. It is the entrepreneurs who create breakthroughs, it is the entrepreneurs who will create new ideas, and that new ideas then get convert into big companies, and that is something that is absolutely necessary. So it is necessary for us to create that entire ecosystem. Partha, so before I come to that, I just want to say that, can we do it? And I think Partha laid a very nice foundation of that entire thing, that we have indeed done it in software. In the 70s, nobody could have imagined that India would be the software leader of the world. Today we are. Nobody could have imagined that as far as BPO is concerned, we will become the service capital of the entire world, and we have become the service capital of the entire world. 10, 12 years back, could any of you sitting in this room imagine that we would be actually exporting cars? 20 years back, we used to make the worst of cars available anywhere in the world. But today we are a major manufacturer as far as automobile is concerned. Look at drugs. after the US, the second largest number of FDA approved plants are now in India. And once again, 15 years back or 10 years back, could we imagine that we would be exporting drugs out of India? So we can do it. I think that is a very important belief that we must have. And I think the time for us to do that, as far as hardware is concerned, as far as this integrated hardware, software, the new electronics that we are talking about, the time for that has come today. We have tried this in the past. So this is actually manufacturing 3.0 for this country. The first manufacturing 1.0 was literally forced upon the industry that, if you manufactured, then you got a lot of SOPs, you got a lot of attractive things, there were duty related advantages and so on. Then it was changed to, but that model did not work. Once we did the liberalization of 90s, actually all that investment went away. In fact, there was a disinvestment that happened in manufacturing. Then we gave it a second shot. Manufacturing 2.0 was, big plants coming up, big manufacturers, Nokia, for example, setting up, and, a whole lot of that sort of manufacturing happened. But again, it was not at the grassroots. Today, what we need is that we need to create that entire manufacturing at the grassroots. We need to do what we did in software. We have to do the exact thing in hardware and create our own role models. We have to create our own successes. So that is something which is very, very important to do. Now, what are the problems in achieving that? And by the way, I've heard similar problems in software industry 25 years back, but today those problems no longer exist. So I'm quite confident that we will be able to tackle all of those problems. So, we've always talked about this L to M gap. Actually, the two letters are consecutive, so there should not be any gap. But in reality, there is lab to market. There is indeed great amount of innovation that happens in the various labs which are there in India, but they never see the light of the day. They never move from L to M. They do not go to the market. And for that, it is necessary for the industry to do something. It is necessary for the investors to do something. It is necessary for the academia to do something. It is necessary for the government also to do something. They all have to work together in terms of creating an ecosystem. Let me start by talking about the academic part of it. There are, I think, about 70 incubators, but if you look at the number of colleges, there would be, many, many more zeros after the 70. So why should we not actually have 700 or 7,000 incubators available in the country? Every college, every institute in Goa, why should it not have an incubator where entrepreneurship is nurtured? Why should students not get credit for the work that they do in these incubators? They are always sort of trying to just get a degree and therefore are not really able to think out of what is required out of the curriculum. But if there were credits which were available for the work that you do in terms of developing innovation, that is something that should be nurtured. Remember Three Idiots? I'm sure all of you do. That is the kind of an innovation that this country wants. Look at the industry. And in terms of the industry, it is absolutely necessary for the industry also to start nurturing this entire ecosystem. They need to do it by way of helping development take place in their labs, keeping the IP, sharing the IP, but letting growth happen on the IP which is created. They need to mentor a lot of companies. They need to nurture that innovation to happen. And then, of course, they also play a very important role, which is that they acquire companies, right? And in terms of investment, now this was again another thing which 15 years back was not there, but today, as far as the Indian Angel Network is concerned, or many other angel groups, there are VCs that have come in, early stage VCs, later stage VCs. So that ecosystem also is something that has developed. Just 72 hours back, I was in Bangalore at an IESA summit, and the session was on entrepreneurship. And in that particular session, there was one person from Silicon Valley. So we said that, look, software story of Silicon Valley everybody knows, but as far as the hardware story is concerned, what is the kind of a role that was played? And he said, oh, very simple. The VCs and the angels were willing to give the money, and the companies were willing to buy, right? And therefore, good valuations got created. And once good valuations get created, this is a self-fulfilling, this is a very virtuous cycle because it creates role models. As we have seen, moment Paytm gets acquired by Alibaba for $500 million, 25%, I'm sure a lot of people sitting in this room will say, hey, listen, I should also do something in software, and I should also do something in the payment area, and I should do something as far as mobile apps are concerned. Right? So this is something, these role models are the ones that drive us. And towards that, obviously, the government also has to play a very important role. And towards that, all the people, except one on this dais, have been responsible for creating the Electropreneur Park. The Electropreneur Park is going to create that entire ecosystem. The Electropreneur Park will take 50 companies, it will accelerate them, it will nurture them, and it will ensure that at least 5 out of those 50 companies become world beaters, become absolute breakthrough companies, and become something that we would be proud of. Just as the software technology park once upon a time ushered the software revolution. If you look at Infosys, Wipro, all the companies were all part of STPI at one stage or the other. And all of them grew from there. That is the kind of a thing that has to be now created by us when we start talking about this integration. The Electropreneur Park is focusing specifically on 2 things. It is focusing, unlike most other incubators, it is saying fail fast. That means if something is not working, give the place to somebody else to come in whose innovation can actually be nurtured there. And the second thing is that the focus is on funding. The idea is that when companies come there, within 12 months to 18 months, they should get funded, which means that the innovation that they have worked on, the lab to market creation that they are doing actually gets recognized by an external body who then is willing to put money into that particular product. So these are 2 things which are very, very different as far as the Electropreneur Park is concerned. The government of India has funded, but it is working in a complete sort of a model where there is an educational institution, which is Delhi University. Thank you very much, Vice Chancellor, for becoming part of the Electropreneur Park. IESA, STPI, and Cyber Media, all of us have put this Electropreneur Park together. The idea is not just to be satisfied with just one Electropreneur Park, but to actually create, and we are right now talking about creating about 7 of these parks. So if there are 7 parks, then we are talking about 350 companies being incubated there, 350 companies being accelerated in those parks, and creating 35 world beaters, which is what India needs. Thank you very much.
दुविधा में हूँ कई बातों को लेकर. I'm not sure if I should speak in Hindi or should I speak in English. I cannot tell if the audience is really from different parts of India. Then maybe I should speak in English. I want to thank Dr. Omkar Rai for the opportunity to be present here today. But do not believe anything that is said about me. I've come here essentially to learn a little bit from the eminent speakers that are present here on the dais, and to see how a university system could help bring about some of the changes that they have so passionately and so eloquently spoken about. I dwelt on the theme that we have here, services to products, and I was trying to think of what is a good illustration for each of the two heads, services and products. There will be many. But I see lots of young minds here in this sparse audience. And I see eminent people on the dais. And I presume that when Dr. Omkar Rai produced the young people here, they are the products on whom such services as their wisdom can provide shall prevail, and hopefully good things will come from that. So in that sense, I'm here to provide a service as well, though maybe not as eloquently as the others have done. But I want to tell you something, and I'm really speaking to the young here. It is important to have self-belief. You should never be overconfident, but you must have a certain degree of confidence and a certain amount of enthusiasm. जब कभी कटी पतंग आपने देखा हो आसमान की हवा पकड़ लेती है, फिर उसको कोई रोक नहीं सकता है. I want that kind of enthusiasm amongst our youth, and I want self-belief that will allow them to cut loose from the bonds that exist around them in today's environment of education, learning, and societal values. And you know, you must take a little bit of courage and strength from India's past also. For centuries, India has been in the forefront in the matter of products and services both. We created knowledge systems that connected with the needs of society and then offered products. And I'll give you quick examples. I know that this is not the time to elaborate in great detail, but there are enough examples to illustrate what I have to say. You just have to connect with history. You know that in the realm of shipbuilding, India was the foremost nation in the world up until a few centuries ago. We built stronger, better, more efficient ships. They were hardy, they were sturdy. But we lost the art, we lost that self-belief, that self-confidence. But it isn't just about shipbuilding. There are other products and services that India was exceptionally good at. You know, at that point in history, when one of the world's greatest scientists, Isaac Newton, tells the British Parliament that at this point in time, science knows no means of finding your location at sea. At that point in time, India had mastered the science and the art. They used a product known as the Rapalagai, which allowed you to determine longitude, latitude at sea. Where were these things coming from? They were coming from our knowledge systems, institutions of learning that were connected with the needs of society and that inspired the young that went there to gain knowledge. There was another aspect. When you connect with the needs of society, knowledge itself has to become hands-on. और भारत की परंपरा इसमें कभी भी पीछे नहीं रही. जब हम अधीन हो गए गौरों के राज्य से, तब कहीं भारत अपने को खो बैठा. पर पतन आरंभ हो गया था जब नालंदा, तक्षशिला, when institutions like Nalanda, Takshashila, etc., when they were destroyed, India's decline began to start. I do not know how many of you know this, but in the matter of using rockets for warfare, India was the first country. They say gunpowder was invented in China, quite possible. But it was India that began to use rockets in warfare. And in one of his last and most important battles where he actually died, Tipu Sultan had a huge armory of rockets. They were made of bamboo casings, stuffed with gunpowder, and there were warheads at the top. No other country was using them the way Tipu was. In fact, when Tipu lost and the British seized his armory, they took away those rockets, and the only change they made was they replaced the bamboo casings with steel casings in America, which is now the United States, when they were fighting the locals there who were fighting for independence. And they used them effectively. I don't know if you know that. These are products, and they were all coming from our knowledge system. Then we lost ourselves somewhere. But then a man came along. जब भारत एक तरह से मनोबल टूट गया था, मार्ग खो चुका था, हालांकि बड़े ऊंचे दर्जे के लोग महापुरुष यहाँ हुए, विवेकानंद हुए और लोग हुए, पर कहीं हाथों के प्रयोग से समाज के हित के लिए कुछ उत्पन्न करें, उसके संदर्भ में एक व्यक्ति था जिसने मार्ग दिखाया, महात्मा गांधी. He got the common man to start producing using the charkha. And people may think that this was retrograde. It wasn't. There are speeches by Gandhi repeatedly where he says that start with the charkha and I give you my word, in just a few years proper industrialization will follow. This is human nature. You move from something and you keep evolving. And the message did go through. But again, as many of my predecessors spoke today, India seems to have faltered time and again. हम कहीं अपने को पहचान नहीं पाते हैं. You know, पुराणों में लिखा है, it is there, I have read it personally, that when Sri Krishna escaped from Mathura, Jarasandha, who was chasing him, made him leave Mathura. And Sri Krishna actually sought some refuge here in Goa with his brother Balram. It says clearly, and till then, remember, he had a divine chakra, Sudarshan chakra, but he also had a chakra that used to hang around his waist. That was not made of iron. But when he came here and he saw the soil, it prompted him to think that there is a better quality metal here, and eventually, as the Purans record, he produced iron here to create a better chakra. Kanhaiyalal Maneklal Munshi, who was also India's food and agriculture minister, and who was from these parts, he really came from Gujarat, not too far from here, he records that somewhere, I believe, he records this at the time of independence, that Goa will have a great amount of iron ore just by reading the Purans. But somewhere India has not been able to take full advantage. This iron ore gets exported all the time because we don't have the technology to extract the iron from it. Why do I say all this to you? Because I want you to understand that these are things that need not happen.